When I first talked about developing empathy training, some people laughed at me. They're like, you can't teach people empathy. It's either in you or it's not. Our whole society has really valued STEM education. We have been leaving out emotion education, since education was first implemented. And it's how we get along with others that actually really predicts our success in the world. What we found was that we could actually see tracings of when people really felt understood, and how that feeling of like, she gets me, or I feel so comfortable with this person, is actually something that we can measure. The way that we were measuring the physiologic responses was with a method called the galvanic skin response. And it's a non-invasive way of measuring micro amounts of sweat on the skin. And you might think like, how much sweating is happening when a doctor and a patient are in a room together, but we're actually secreting micro amounts of sweat constantly. And with this galvanic skin meter, they're able to measure tiny particles that an electric current is going through, and so there are up fluctuations and down fluctuations depending on how physiologically aroused the two people are. None of us would be here today if our ancestors hadn't helped out, cooperated, received help, and given help. It's really what binds the fabric of our society together. And when we face perilous times with an empathy decrease, that's when othering and outgroups and bias and prejudice start to take over. Everybody knows that there are some people in our country who are very upset and very worried about climate change, and then there are climate change deniers. And so if you go in with the phrase climate change, it's like a non-starter. But there's some groups in Florida that talk about nuisance flooding. You could argue about, oh, that's such an understatement. How can you just call that a nuisance? This is a perilous, disastrous situation. But if you can agree that the flooding is a nuisance, you've started a conversation where it's not really about what you call it, but it's more about like, how are we going to come together and figure this out? And so these opportunities are right in front of us.